Good morning. This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. There's other stuff in here that you guys can subscribe to it if you want more details, but I don't really find the Japanese and Mexican stuff that interesting overall, so I only report on like the big points in that. But this was a big one this week, so I'll jump into it. Apparently, there is talk that the WWE, who are doing the Royal Rumble this year at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, are thinking of bringing The Rock back to win the Royal Rumble, then go on to have that match against his family member Roman Reigns at WrestleMania in LA, where I guess The Rock wants to have his retirement match in LA, and traditionally the winner of the Royal Rumble fights the WWE champion at WrestleMania, which we all know Roman Reigns never loses, so of course he's going to hold on to that title till then. And since he is a family member, of course, The Rock will probably pass the torch to him at that WrestleMania. But yeah, I think that would be cool if he entered. They're saying they might keep it as a surprise entry, but the people that would know about something like this aren't talking about it. And I did think they kept Edge as a surprise entry before. I think he debuted the year everyone said was expecting Sting to be in the Royal Rumble. So maybe it'll be another disappointment like that. It'll be really someone else that actually ends up debuting. But apparently the gate's already 5 million in Texas, and they're making ridiculous amounts of money these days. So they can afford to bring him in, and that's another easy payday for The Rock. And of course, it would get footage of him on all the news stuff, like all Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight and so forth, showing that he's back in the ring and he's going to be wrestling at WrestleMania, which would help build to WrestleMania. So we'll see. If that happens, I will watch that part of the Royal Rumble. War Games. The War Games Survivor Series took place last week in Boston. Apparently, the company announced over 15,000 fans in attendance, which they claimed that was a sellout, but there was 13,068 in the building with 12,600 paid. The gate was over 1 million. The searches were 200,000, which is more of a B level show than an A level pay per view. So I guess there wasn't a lot of interest in the Survivor Series this year. I've completely forgot about it until the results were coming up in the news the next day. The main event for it was very weak. And again, like when you have Roman Reigns' group winning every single time, like at some point I remember watching Macho Man against Ric Flair or Hogan versus Warrior. Like you didn't know necessarily who was going to win. Even a lot of Hulk Hogan's opponents, like with Hogan and Savage and Hogan and Andre and stuff, like you didn't necessarily know Hogan was going to win. But this Roman Reigns thing, the guys they were I don't know if they have that many. That's the problem though too. They don't have that many stars in WWE. If Cody Rhodes was back with the team, maybe there'd be more questions. But like it just seems like all WWE does is push that group and no one else is getting a push to their level. So unless they bring in a guy like The Rock, I don't know who they could bring in with believability that Roman Reigns might lose. All right. Do I feel the MJF angle was a segue for William Regal to jump to WWE? Yes. There was a 16-minute promo with MJF and Regal that ended with MJF beating up Regal. And there's talk that Regal's going back to WWE. And again, that I watched like the first couple of minutes, was bored out of my mind, fast forwarded to the end, and saw the Regal thing. And yeah, Triple H was tweeting about Regal. So it's very, very possible. This is actually the tweet that Triple H put out about Regal. So wouldn't make sense that he's tweeting about him if he's not coming, because they don't like to put over people in other companies. There was a big backstage controversy after the War Games Survivor Series with Owens apparently slapping Roman Reigns in the match in an unplanned spot that left Roman with a big bruise under his left eye. Apparently, his eardrum was also affected, left eardrum. Apparently, Roman went off on Owens backstage, swearing at him and so forth. He was not only mad because of the injury, but also he didn't feel it made sense for his character to get slapped by Owens. And he got hurt on top of it all. So apparently he was pissed. Stephanie McMahon said the company is now in the market for potentially acquiring other companies. In the past, they were talking to companies like Ring of Honor and TNA, but that was more to buy their footage and shut them down. Impact still has a lot of footage, but they're hardly any level of competition anymore at this point. And also they're owned by Access TV, who uses the content. But Impact does make a lot of money on YouTube, I'm sure, because they have like footage of 20 years and all the famous people that have gone through that company in the past when it was seeing better days. So I could see, and a lot of WWE guys are from Impact. So who knows if they would still be interested in buying that footage. They'd have the money for it for sure. And the company can't be making money. But again, if they're just content for the Access TV or whatever, I don't know. It just boggles my mind that with the crap product they put out, they're still around. But I understand they do make money off of the old stuff, which there was a lot of stars in their old footage, including Hulk Hogan and AJ Styles and Samoa Joe and all those people. And also, Meltzer brings up that if they were to buy a company like AAA in Mexico or Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan, they might actually run those companies as international territories. So, yeah, I could also see that happening. It's easier to buy a company and take it over than try and start your own. Their NXT UK didn't really work out too well. It went out of business. Apparently, WrestleMania 2027 could very well be in Nashville. Randy Orton had back surgery last week. Apparently, he's one of WWE's top 5 highest paid wrestlers. I've heard he makes around $4 million or so. Apparently, Eric Young, who's been in Impact lately, has been re-signed to WWE, and Impact did an angle with him this week where he was killed with a knife. So again, that company is just, they take the ridiculousness to other levels. Brandy Rhodes, who's 39, is now saying she's not going to return to wrestling. Glenn Jacobs settled paid $150,000 to Knox County former Parks and Recreation director Paul White, not the Big Show though. who claimed that he was using employees to work at his home when they were on the company clock. Apparently, this had to do with a snake being loose in Kane's home, and Parks and Recreation officers coming to remove the snake, but it was apparently on their lunch break. And this Paul White guy no longer works for Parks and Rec. So the $150,000, according to the settlement, were for legal fees. Dynamite did its lowest rating ever, unopposed, in its regular time slot this past week, 0.26. So MJF is not exactly killing it. The show was done in front of 3,700 fans in Indianapolis. The last time they did that low of a rating was March 31st, 2021, where they were still going against NXT head-to-head. NXT did a 0.13 rating. Raw from Norfolk in front of the 6,300 paid did a 0.4 rating. And it had the second biggest first to third hour drop in history. Surprise, surprise, Kevin Owens was the main event in the third hour. He's usually part of these historic ratings numbers that are usually bad. But the show started with 1,951,000 viewers. By the time the third hour finished, there was only 1,433,000 viewers watching. So about 600,000 or so viewers tuned out. Rampage did a 0.11 rating. SmackDown did a 0.54 rating from Providence, where I've been before. Very good restaurants there. 5,200 paid. That's where I interviewed Zeus, where you guys can check that interview out, and he was a great guy. Impact did a 0.02 rating. The Ted Hart documentary apparently aired after Raw and did a 0.06 rating on USA. So not only did it air on Peacock, it aired on USA. So I wonder, it's gotta suck for him that he gets no money out of that. I have to say. I did notice that Vince Russo commented on it too, saying like, it's funny, like right up until the end of the third episode, it makes it seem like he could have been guilty of this Samantha Fiddler missing persons case. And then at the end, they pretty much say that he was across the country when she was released from prison and went missing. So in reality, he couldn't have done it, and the police never even questioned him about it in their investigation, from what I understand. So yeah, Vince Russo also found it interesting, I guess, that they made it seem like he did it to keep the viewers, only to reveal at the end they knew all along he had an alibi. Is he a good person? And don't know how he is now, but no, he did say, it's funny though, he did say he was going to do an interview on the channel with Jack Kilby, who he's talked to Jack for hours and hours and hours recently. And Jack actually paid him for his 2 October interviews that he did on this channel. But it's funny because he told Jack he would do another interview, but Jack said he wasn't going to pay him for a third interview. And it's funny that he never ended up doing the third interview. So we always hear like some of his defenders saying what a good guy he is. But what does he really ever do for free for people, honestly? I mean, you could say he signs autographs for fans and stuff, but wrestlers make money by selling autographs and taking pictures with fans. And people claim that I'm one of his biggest defenders. No, I just don't think he killed that person. And yeah, definitely not one of his biggest defenders. I've had my ups and downs with him as well, but that documentary was crap, and it was basically to get the producer of the documentary over, and the producer of the documentary made all the money. In AEW news, for their Full Gear show, apparently the crowd was chanting that MJF was going to be the new champion before he even won. So again, not a big surprise that he was going to win that title. Apparently, even though they said it was a sellout, it was about 600 short of a sellout, with 11,000 paid. And again, a sellout for whatever setup they had. Because these arenas, funny enough, when UFC comes to these arenas, they get closer to 20,000. But for wrestling, for whatever reason, they don't count the curtained off seats as like potential paid seats, which I find is silly. Because again, Madison Square Garden now, it's always like 10 or 12,000 person sellout, but UFC will still get 20,000 people in there. Apparently, Rampage tapings at the same building did 5,200 paid. I know that it's cheaper and less hassle for them to run these same buildings for the tapings, but to me, it seems like they'd get bigger crowds if they would travel around more. Like, for instance, when they came to Canada, doing the 2 nights in a row in Toronto, if they'd done Toronto and Montreal, they would have had 2 hotter crowds and potentially bigger crowds, because instead of being there 2 nights in a row, where not everyone's going to buy tickets for both nights, it's only in one town for one night. And the super fans are still going to drive to both. Here again, and this is funny, Jim Ross apparently talked on his podcast about Full Gear and said Tony Khan only wanted him to do half the show, and he went back to his hotel after he called the first half. So again, Tony Khan, I don't even understand this. Like, why would you have like 2 sets of announcers to call a show? To me, that's a waste of money. You're paying extra salaries, you're flying all these people in and paying extra travel. And Jim Ross said he would have preferred to call the same show, but he just doesn't care about spending money. All these wrestlers that he signs, there's just a massive amount of wrestlers under AEW contract, with, I don't even know if there's a handful of over wrestlers in that company. Sierra, aka Paige, had her first match on this Full Gear pay-per-view in 5 years. Apparently she looks rusty, but she beat Britt Baker. And Dave Meltzer here says he feels they still make WWE people look stronger than AEW when they come in and beat the top woman. Like, CM Punk came in and won the title pretty quick. I believe Moxley did too, but whatever. Apparently, Kenny Omega did an interview talking about everyone needed to put the CM Punk situation behind him. And then him and the Young Bucks did their spoof on CM Punk on Dynamite, which Meltzer points out is kind of weird that they would say that and then do that. Why bother saying that? Andrade underwent surgery for a torn pec. I probably still will eventually need to get surgery on mine. I've had mine over a year now. And although the stem cells have helped, I still don't think it's fully healed. And I've been through a lot of physio for it as well. Not that it matters, but that's another reason I don't want to wrestle anymore. Don't want to get more injuries. Apparently, the FTR is saying that they're thinking about taking a year off after their contracts expire in April. I said that didn't make sense. Meltzer agrees. They're both in their late 30s and they're both making the best money of their careers. Why would you not continue to wrestle at a point where AEW and WWE are still doing bidding wars? Apparently, their last WWE offer was for $900,000 each. So AEW must have messaged them more, or it's not messaged them more, but paid them more. And by the way, for as over as these people are, allegedly, I mean, there's a shoot interview with them on this channel that people can look up. It doesn't even have 900 views in 7 months. So the guys today are lucky that they're making billions and they don't have to really draw. The money is just huge from TV. So these companies pay ridiculous amounts to wrestlers. Pro Wrestling Noah is going to use Darby Allin and Sting in the Great Muda's final match of his Great Muda gimmick next January on the 22nd. Cain Velasquez is going to wrestle December 3rd in Tempe, Arizona at the Mullet Arena, which is a building on the campus of the beautiful Arizona State University where I was last year. Wonderful university campus, by the way. And I actually still wear the sweater that I got from there when Dan Severin gave me the tour. Anyways, there's about 1,744 tickets out for that show right now. And it's a AAA show. MLW that runs about once every 3 months now is apparently not using the Von Erichs on their next show. And Von Erich said in an interview that aired on this channel recently that they're looking at other options when their contracts expire. And from what I understand, with MLW, most of their contracts, you don't actually get paid unless you wrestle, but you have to sign an agreement to work for them. So I don't know if there's heat between the Von Erichs and MLW, or they're not using them because they're not re-signing, or they can't afford to fly them in from Hawaii. But it sucks for them that they're in the prime of their careers and they seem to be stuck in contracts and not being used. Brutal. Apparently for this power slap show that Dana White's doing, where people basically take unprotected shots to the head, if a fighter gets knocked out, he's going to have 2 minutes to recover from the last slap and get one more chance to knock his opponent out. And if he does knock opponent out with that last slap, it will be declared a draw. Again, I think that this power slap stuff is just dumb, and people should not be allowed to do. Like, I don't see why this should be sanctioned with all we know about brain injuries. Just exchanging unprotected shots to the head. It's people that want to get famous somehow that have like no talent to get famous in other ways, or people that really need money. So I don't know. I just think that I can't be entertained by that. I'm sorry. Because all I think about is these people are just taking brain injuries. Hello, Tom. Chopper Billy Jack hasn't been missing. He's been on this channel a couple times this past year. And he messages me usually once or twice a week. He did message me this week. His wife hasn't been in the best health, and he's just keeping to himself in Oregon. John Piper had a good night last night, actually, and she's still in bed. She woke me up early today. She had to use the washroom, and then she went back to bed. She's very independent, but yeah, I like to see her doing better. Yeah, we had a scary few weeks, but it looks like she's doing better. And I'm at these poodles. She's only about to turn 11, and apparently she might have a heart condition. We're going to know more about it at her appointment December 22nd. But hopefully they can get her on some medication. And it's just been a scary couple of weeks and a stressful couple of weeks for me because it's my best buddy there. But I'm glad she's doing better and sleeping because she also has some broken ribs from me having to do CPR on her a few weeks ago. And I think one of the reasons she was having issues sleeping is her rib pain. But yeah, traumatic for me. As I said, she's my kid. I consider her my own daughter. So, and I take her everywhere. I'm with her. Other than when I go to the gym, I'm with her all day, every day. Ryan, hey, New Zealand's probably a lot warmer than it is here right now. Well, they suck up to The Rock a lot. Basically, his family never has to lose, and where most people would be fired if they got a DUI in their WWE work. I'm not hating on that. I'm just saying it is favoritism that the one Samoan guy that's had multiple DUIs under contract now, he still continues to get pushed. And now his daughter's in there, which I know that they'll be able to make money off of the daughter. But I also think it'll be good for The Rock if he does the Royal Rumble. He'll get a huge amount of money, and it would make his WrestleMania thing even bigger because it would help publicize it. And of course, he wants to be. He is possibly the biggest star in the world, not only in wrestling but in Hollywood. So he'd want to make his WrestleMania appearance as big as possible, and Royal Rumbles in a stadium. So the highlights of that appearing on the news and stuff will look good for him. So wish everyone a good day and a good weekend. Don't forget these streams all air ad-free on Facebook too. And we're on the Hannibal TV at Twitter and Instagram too. So follow that for instant updates. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow